legacy and artwork of Oscar Brown Jr. is still being appreciated and
Yeah,
distributed.
indeed.
Well, almost. At least
Right.
one person I wish wasn't on the Oscar Brown train, and
I
that was.
wonder who you could be talking
Oh,
Y'all,
about.
y'all want to start with that? Y'all want to
Yeah.
get that out of the
Lead with
way?
the lead, I always
I
say.
Yes.
have been saying that a lot lately. Yes. Lead with the lead, and that would be leading us into that.
Okay. Well, let's start. Let's not
No.
sully this. Let us cleanse our palate. Let us
Oh.
align our
Start
chakras
with-
first.
Right.
First, let's
Om.
first talk about Oscar Brown Jr. Let's give our audience, because I got some millennials
That's
that
right.
listen. I got some
Yeah,
uninitiated
That's the point. Yeah.
people that listen. So let's start by introducing yourselves and then talking about who was Oscar Brown Jr.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, my name is Africa Brown, and I am the youngest of Oscar's children. And
Africa's sister Maggie Brown, and so I'm number 6 of 7 children of Oscar Brown Jr. And together we've joined forces to because we're both artists, performing artists, but we also have a great interest in seeing to it that the material that our father left, that the works that he created, while they were not exposed nearly as much as we think they deserved to be when he was living, they still deserve to be exposed, and the world needs to be turned on to it.
a lifetime of work.
So where is Oscar Brown from, and how did he end up becoming this iconic artist?
He's from Chicago.
Yeah, he
Illinois.
was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. His father, our grandfather, Oscar Brown Sr., he came up in the Great Migration, came up from Mississippi, Edwards, during that wave, and came to serve and to help black people. He and his brother became attorneys at Howard University,
Wow.
and they came here to serve and to get black people into fight against restrictive housing covenants and help them get into condominiums at a time when folks of color were not getting no condominiums in Chicago much.
Wow.
And so he had a
5
desk.
brothers.
Yeah, he was one. Oscar Senior was one of 5 brothers, and there was a desk at Oscar C. Brown Real Estate on 46th and Cottage for our father to
Yeah.
come and become
A little
an
Oscar's
attorney, little
desk, they
Oscar's
used to
desk
call
and all
it.
that.
Yeah.
He didn't want to go sit at no desk with no bunch of squares.
Listen, when he was up there, it was a cool loft. When he sat at it, what was he doing?
He was typing plays.
Yeah, he was
Oh.
typing
Typing
Kicks and
music,
Company,
yep.
which
Wow.
was his first musical.
Yeah.
And so the sights and the sounds he said, he was down the street from the Regal Theater in South Park. I saw the jitneys and the cats in the alleys, and that turned him on, and that inspired some of the
So
earliest.
many songs.
Yeah, some of the earliest songs that a lot of people know him for, like Signify Monkey and Dat Dare, and just Forbidden Fruit work songs,
All
stuff
of
like that.
Yeah.
So was his dad disappointed that he didn't go into law? And 'cause I know how a lot of these, especially these academic brothers, be about their kids and the arts.
Yeah.
I believe that Big Oscar might have been disappointed in the beginning.
Right,
at
yeah, of
times.
course.
Right.
But once it became evident what he was doing and how he was accepted and all of that, there was no way that he could be disappointed in his son, because he was out there fighting on another front.
Right. So, yeah, because I mean that is also the height of the civil rights era, the Black Power,
Yeah,
Black struggle
all of
movement.
that.
They said that Oscar's, music actually back then was giving, it was Afrocentric before we had, coined the term.
Yeah.
Actually.
Right.
Because really his very first album must have come out in the top of the 60s. It had Bit 'em In on it. It was called Sin and Soul. It was on Columbia. And it had Bit 'em In on it. It probably had
But
Work
see, people
Song
don't even know what Bit 'em In is. You just a little bit, man.
Okay.
Just
So this is Bit 'em in, get 'em in. That sun is hot and plenty bright. Let's get out of business and get home tonight. Bid 'em in, get 'em in. Auctioning slaves is a real high art. Bring that young gal, Roy, she's good for a start. Bid 'em in, get 'em in. And here's a real good buy, only about 15. Her great grandmammy was the down homie queen. Just look at her face, she sure ain't homely. Like she in the Bible, she's black but comely. Bid 'em in, get 'em in. Don't start her 3, can I have 3? Step up, gents, take a good look, see. Cause I know you want her once you've seen her. She's young and right, make a darn good breeder. Bid 'em in, get 'em in. Baby, that's why we need the Me Too movement now, because of, it started way back then, the disrespect and the whole inhumane way of treatment for particularly females, and particularly for our female ancestors back in the day. And so it's, it's a real powerful piece, and it's deep that we're about to do in part of this series of readings
Creasy.
This,
Creasy.
what I just
The slave
recited,
story.
the piece of Bitter Men, it comes from Creasy, a musical operetta that Oscar Brown Jr. wrote.
He wrote it in iambic pentameter in rhyming quatrains. This is an unparalleled work. It really is. He was very proud of this piece. And as we get into it, we can understand why, because I haven't seen or heard anything like it.
Me
you know,
either.
that rhymes from the beginning to the end. And so I really
It's kinda
want
like
people to come out. And
he was way before the Hamilton thing that's very popular now.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is, and it's a beautiful thing that it has come out because rhyming. It's just hip storytelling. It's part of our African culture.
But Daddy took it to another level.
Yeah, he took it to another
really
level,
did.
and he never had that kind of production. Never had that kind of support. In fact, when he started turning his career that was soaring at a certain time here in Chicago and in New York and L.A., he would perform and stuff and make headlines. But he turned his attention to working with the Black Stone Rangers, the mighty Black Stone Rangers back then. Peace Stone Nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They went through some different transformations. Anyway, they were a South Side gang that was happening in the '60s, and the headlines made it seem like they were terrorizing things. So Dad went and talked to them, and
He was trying to get his show on over
Right.
there on the South Side, and
at the Harper Theater.
Right, at the Harper Theater. He wanted to put on the show, but people wouldn't come out there because they were scared of the gangs.
Right.
And so Dad went to go talk to them, and instead of just talking to them and trying to get them to cooperate with him, he ended up working with them and making a show with them involved, and it was beautiful,
Wow.
the work that they put on.
Called Opportunity Please Knock.
Yep.
Wow. Oh, this is my first time hearing of that in that
Wonderful.
those collaborations.
This is why
Wow.
we're doing all this, because it's the first time of a lot of people hearing of a lot of things. He was thrust into the limelight recently. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in
All
there.
right, yeah, let's do it. Let's.
He got more publicity than he had ever gotten in his
Right.
life just recently, but didn't even get the credit. Didn't even say his name.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know what
that
I'm
was
saying?
that was utterly disgusting. But you guys, y'all held it down. But let's talk about that. Oscar Brown has this iconic song called "The Snake," which is a cautionary tale, spoken word, jazz.
Let's just give him that first.
Yeah,
a little
let's.
bit of that right.
Okay.
Start.
On her way to work one morning, down a path alongside the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Poor thing," she cried, "I'll take you in and I'll take care of you. Take me in, tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, tender woman." Sighed the snake.
She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk, and she laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. And she hurried home from work that night, and soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. Take me in, tender woman, take me in, for heaven's sake.
Take me in, tender woman,
sighed the snake.
So yeah, that's
In the
we
end,
grew up
right, we
listening to
and
that
watching
song
him
and
do
watching
that.
him
Right.
and realizing that he was telling a precautionary tale.
Right,
Right.
and he was saying, and so then she saved him, and then she said, "Oh, you're so beautiful," and she gave him a kiss. But then the snake, instead of saying thanks,
He bit her.
He gave her a vicious bite,
Mhm.
and so then she said, "Well, I saved you, and you bit me. Why?" And he said, "Well, you knew
my
damn
bit
well I was a snake before you took me in."
Right.
That's
And
the
so
punchline.
Trump, and this is related to
Number
the
45.
right
that
was
thing.
was traveling the country.
Yes.
I mean-
Well, he doesn't travel the country. There's whole swaths of the U.S. that Trump doesn't go to.
Okay,
In
there
his
you go.
hometown of New York City, he hasn't held one major event.
I bet
You know,
not.
he goes to them backwoods with the good old boys in Iowa and Nebraska,
Yeah.
and he would basically quote misquote this song, and it was mainly in Syrian refugees. They were saying in Syria they wanted to, the EU, excuse me, and other countries said, everyone should take a portion of these refugees from Syria And then also, of course, the manufactured crisis at the southern border, and he was suggesting that these desperate refugees, Honduran refugees, Syrian refugees, Yemenis, were snakes, and if we allowed them into our country,
They
they
would
would
bite
return
us.
our hospitality with terrorism.
Yeah.
And he would quote
Yeah.
Oscar Brown's
That's
song.
that's exactly the context on which he would pull the thing out of his lapel and read it verbatim, every chorus, all the way beginning to end. And toward the end, like by the time he was doing it at that Republican National Convention last February, the reporter told us how, I was in the audience, and it was like the way they seethed, like, you know, the way they just, like when he said, and gave her a vicious bite right there, and then when he said, you knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in, the audience just, like they were at a wrestling match or something, or gladiator thing. It is very disgusting. That imagery of it, it was sickening.
It's quite amazing though. But I mean, in another sense though, if my dad could have been alive during all of this or any of this, he would have written so many things, right? But the fact that Trump was saying his words out of his mouth, and come on, y'all, he was like, it was like autobiographical.
Like
and
the snake being the snake.
It was.
How did Dad get the guy? How did he
him
get
to
the
do
snake
that?
to say the snake?
I love that.
From that
Right,
side.
yeah,
I love that.
'Cause
Trump is
babe,
actually the slithering snake.
Yes.
Come on.
Come on.
I mean, most so, because black people didn't fall for the okie doke. We fall for a lot of okie dokes, but this ain't
Not
one of the
that
okie
one.
dokes.
that was
Not
We
that
fell. This is all on white folks' shoulders.
Right.
They fought for and earned this war. And he's a snake to them. You know, right now, the same Iowa farmers are suffering not only from the shutdown. You know, a large percentage of U.S. Commodity crops are shipped to China.
Yeah, no, I heard of the cheese thing.
Yeah.
It's like a billion tons of cheese,
Right.
like just sitting there because
right.
China can't do the cheese like they used to. Mexico used to actually buy a lot of
Yeah,
cheese from
and
us.
a lot of the same farmers, a lot of their laborers were from Latin America and Central America.
Oh.
So a lot of
Might not have
Trump
been
country
documented,
is
possibly.
right, and the coal jobs, and a report just came out a week or two ago that China has had the biggest trade deficit in all of history in 2018. So with all his trade war, China made more money off of the U.S., sold more goods to the United States, and purchased less from the United States than before Trump started his silly trade war. So he's the snake. Everything he promised, including the wall, including ending all the wars overseas, including he said he would defeat ISIS in 3 weeks, have all been failed. So he is truly the snake. You know, but that's why, I mean, that's just pure psychological projection. You know, if we're going to get clinical
Definitely.
with it, I mean,
The best display you'll see in a long time.
right,
So he didn't give
From
him
the
credit.
highest
You know,
office.
he didn't give him credit though.
right.
And that, you know, when it first happened, that we couldn't believe it. It was like watching South Park or something. I thought it was a joke. Like, he can't be. That's not my dad's words, you know. But
Right.
it was. And then when he didn't say his name, and over and over and over, because he did it for a long time. He started doing it on his campaign trail.
Right, before
You
it
know?
was even elected.
So yeah.
I didn't even know about it until I saw you guys
On
repudiating
MS.
him
Yeah.
because I don't
They
follow
got to
Trump like that.
repudiate.
You know, I don't follow
Of course
Trump.
not.
I don't listen to Trump's speeches or his addresses. I don't mess with Trump. You know, I don't go there. I just don't watch
Yeah.
nonsense. You
Get
know?
yourself all worked up.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I saw you guys come out and repudiate Trump and demand that he stop using Oscar Brown's artistry, you know, for his own nefarious ends, that's when I first knew he was doing it. You know.
That's why we were so glad. And it's funny, listen, I tell you, because he was doing it on his campaign trail. Then even after he won, he would do it.
Yeah.
And we hear about it. And every now and then a press person might call us from the press, from a newspaper or something. And then he did it on his 100th day in office. And Associated Press got us on the phone. And we did another, you know, phone interview that went into the paper or something, maybe on their website. But baby, by the time he did it for that Republican thing, there were enough people in the press that wanted to make him look like the bumbling idiot that they were like, oh, get them on the screen. Don, I think we can get them in. Can we satellite them in? Because I know they don't want him doing this with their father's words.
Right.
And when he did finally try to say some credit give credit for what he's reading. He said this is by Al Wilson. He made it in the 90s or something like that. Well, what that is, that's he never
Right.
has facts, and so that's like saying that Ella Fitzgerald wrote April in Paris, or that Frank Sinatra wrote, New York, New York. No, they covered the tune.
Right.
They're one of the many people who sang it.
Right.
Al Wilson happened to sing the song, but no, the words are by Oscar Brown Jr.
And not once did he say it out of his mouth, not once.
Which kind of makes sense, because
course.
how could he
How
be
could
quoted?
he?
Oh, and the thing that the press guys wanted to know, particularly, whoa, I wonder how would the fans of Trump supporters feel knowing that he's saying the poem of a former communist, black
right.
national,
they wrote
a black
that hard.
communist,
They
former
wrote that
black
hard.
communist.
We were
That's
like,
really what
yes.
they wanted to be able to
Yeah.
say, like,
Right.
Yeah.
do you know what you guys are following? Do you know what you guys are cheering and jeering
And I haven't heard
Getting
him
all
doing
worked
it
up.
since either.
I don't know, but I hope
don't
he
know.
hasn't.
Right. And especially in the context that it is, if anybody, in the context of a deceiver, a backstabber, an invader, for racist white America,
Exactly.
to define, desperate refugees, people fleeing U.S. imperialism as the invaders, it's just too many levels of irony
So
and
many levels.
just too many buckets of gall for us to even
Yeah.
sit through.
I know we done gave it a lot of time, and just it's just amazing. I mean, it'd be different if, like, every now and then he quoted poetry. Here he's known to quote poetry. No, there is that one.
Well, you
Only
remember-
that only that one, and I'm
But
just like, and it's
selfishly though,
Oscars?
I was like, look, man, we couldn't
Man.
pay for this kind of publicity.
Exactly,
Stop
yeah. At
it.
least you gotta flip it and remix it. But remember, him and Frederick Douglass were really cool. Remember when he was quoting Frederick Douglass, and he said he had just met with Frederick Douglass, and
Oh,
he's
wait,
a great,
wait,
Frederick
stop,
Douglass was a
stop,
great
Oh,
great
no.
black leader.
Oh no, I
So I mean, he cool with a lot of black people. He kicks it with us. He messes with us heavy. Trump. Y'all
do. You so silly.
I mean, it's like, I wish I could meet with Frederick
I
Douglass.
really
Where they
do
got him.
too.
Maybe he's in the Pentagon. They got those laboratories down there, time machine. Who
He
knows?
might have really been kicking it with them. Otherwise,
Yeah.
an
Oh
idiot.
my God,
But
it's the
Trump-
Illuminati.
Right. Oh, right. Reptilian.
Yes.
Well, but that's done. Is he done?
Oh
with-
well,
with
I
the
mean,
snake?
you know,
Is it-
how could he not be done? We came on TV and we were
Right.
like, Oscar Brown Jr. wrote the snake. Oscar Brown Jr.
Oscar
wrote
Brown
the
Jr.
snake.
did not
We
stand for anything like this.
Yeah.
And he's
Right,
twisting
right.
it, and he
Yeah.
is twisted, and
Yeah.
and she was like, and he is the snake.
I did
And so,
say it. I
boom,
did.
So there,
I did
boom.
say it.
Did y'all get any backlash
Crickets.
from the
Crickets.
Mongoloids?
Oh yeah. But I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. But
Just
this
on
one
Facebook.
seething message that I got from this person was like something about, why did he name you Africa anyway, or something. He questioned my even being named that, and he was like,
Wow.
no one's ever heard of your father. He was insignificant in the music business. You're lucky Trump used his word. I'm like, yeah, B, you right, my man. But it was you could feel it, you know what I
Right.
mean? So I didn't even bother reading or looking for anything else,
Right.
just to not entertain that type of energy. But I do know it was there. My brother, Napoleon Brown, he said, I was really shocked at how people came at you all. You
Right.
know, but what I saw a lot on Twitter was people commenting, in a good way, and
Right.
saying positive things. And a lot of people had a whole bunch to say about me wearing that Living Color T-shirt.
Oh, yeah,
And,
I
it
saw
was
that.
just like little, really heartfelt things. One person said that by the time we said the poem together, that he stood up and clapped like he was at home, clapping
Right.
in his, giving us a standing ovation. So things like that
Right.
made me feel good, because I know that there were people that we reached, and that there were people who had never heard of my dad before, and we were illuminating things a little bit. Not only did we shine the light on the fact that he was doing wrong, number 45 was doing wrong, but the fact of, how much light needs to be shed on this body of work. And that's why my sister and I are really working hard. And this play reading that's coming up on the 20th is one of 5 that we are putting together. We've done 2 already.
Okay,
And,
that's a good segue. Let's talk about these upcoming performances. There are 5. The first one will be.
No, the first 2 have
No,
happened.
they happened already.
Right, so
Oh.
the one that's the third one, we're in the third of a 5.
January
series.
20th.
That's right, this Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And it's at the Logan Center, so on 915 East 60th Street, off of the Midway and in Cottage Grove.
Okay, and at 4 p.m.
At 4 p.m. It's free to the public. But you need to go to UChicago or ticket to uchicago.edu, I believe it is.
Are there tickets still available?
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
absolutely. Plenty of seats. Please come.
Yes,
bring family and
please.
friends. And check this out. This is like, okay, other than Shakespeare, we don't know anybody else that writes in iambic pentameter,
Right.
rhyming quatrains, and every character says every line. All their dialogue happens in this way. And it tells a great story of it's that bit of men, the main character, Creasy, is sold onto the Talbot plantation, where there's a Cato, the stud. He's known to be the one that studs the
Right.
women, you know. And so instead, though, he falls in love with Creasy, and he asks Master Stacy, can he please stop studying and go ahead and marry her? Stacy says, great, yeah, in fact, I'll give you a wedding gift. But there's an evil overseer that, you know, basically brings out the fact that it's a crime to just have such real love and really be trying to cling and create
Right.
family in those times of the antebellum South.
Right.
And so, you know, it's dramatic. It's got funny stuff. It's wonderful music. It's a great piece of American theater. I don't even want to say world theater. It's just a great piece of American theater that America doesn't know about.
Exactly. And we were saying just on the way up here how we want, you know, what is the measure?
Right.
Who's weighing it?
And
And
besides,
we need to weigh in.
What's the bomb?
You know, we want to.
We want to get ours
weigh
in the rate. We want ours
Yeah.
to be put up there and considered by the people who consider that which is great theater, great black, you know, poetry, the storytelling tip. There's a, you know, just thinking his philosophies
And he
about
got this from
being hip.
He was inspired by Shakespeare.
Right.
You know, he
For
spoke
that.
very highly about the just the rhyming quatrains, just that style of
Right,
writing,
yeah.
and how difficult it was to create a body of work from beginning to end to do that.
Yeah,
but he did.
It's impressive.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah.
played Puck in A Midsummer's Night Dream. That was
Nice.
the first play I was ever in.
Oh, we
Yeah,
gonna have to
yeah.
call you for one of these readings, brother.
Yeah, maybe. You know, it's been a while. I have to dust off my chops. But
Okay.
I used to be a very prolific actor.
Wow.
Yeah.
See
Who knew it?
there?
Oh, look out now.
Yeah, now see that's
We
like
got
riding
two
a
left.
bike. You all right?
And so, where can our listeners go to get this information? I just don't want it to slip by. For tickets and the performance schedule, we have 3 more performances: January 20th, February 24th, and March 18th.
That's right.
Right. So the one that's the 20th, for any of them, really go tickets.uchicago, just the letter U, and spelled out chicago.edu. Tickets, uchicago.edu, or 773-702 ARTS, plural, ARTS. So that's the way to get to the Logan Center, which is a beautiful facility. If you've never been there on the Chicago South Side, you need to check that out anyway. And those of you who have been there, I bet you've been there and you've been there over and over, because all the cool stuff happens there within our community, whether it's Muntu, Billy Branch, Africa Maggie, you know, there's a little bit of every little bit of everything
Yes.
happens in there, you know.
Yes.
The 50th anniversary of this, that, and the other thing, centenary celebration of Tim Black.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a great house, the Logan Center. So we feel very grateful. It's a fateful day. I happened to go see friends performing at the Logan one evening.
And Dan Logan.
And Dan Logan
walked
himself.
up to him.
Yep, who's the
And
relative,
introduced
I
us.
believe the offspring of
Of
Reva
Reva
and
and David, yeah.
Logan, and said, I hear you're working on your father's archive. I'd like to know if I can help in any way. And I said, you betcha. You betcha you
Yeah,
can help.
She liked to fell out.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was great. And
Yeah.
so it hasn't been that long since that happened, and that for us to be
Actually,
knee
it
deep in
happened
our project.
Actually, she met him 10/10, right? So 10/10 of 2016. That's my dad's birthday. 10/10.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
17.
Right.
And so then a year later, 10/10,
2018.
we did the first play reading.
Yeah.
Oh my
We
goodness.
started.
Yeah.
We had kicked off the project nice and fully,
Mhm.
and just working on like a book, just doing what we can to get consulting on how to deal with publishing, just the various aspects. Because see, when we talk about if people are fans of Oscar Brown Jr., chances are they only know the tip of the iceberg. It's
Right.
because
Right.
so much of what he created wasn't published.
Right.
Right? So we're kind of bringing that stuff out posthumously. That's our effort now. That again, if it's considered in scholarly, I don't care, from the grade school level on up, just like Margaret Burroughs and Gwendolyn Brooks and so forth are included in the things
Right.
that our
Especially
children
in
learn about. And I
Chicago.
mean, in Chicago, come on
Yeah.
now. And there's no way that he shouldn't be included, except that the only fault he had was being too outspoken, was
Brown
standing
baby.
up,
Right.
was saying the things that black folks wanted to say and white folks needed to hear. You know, at a time when they
Muhammad
would
Ali
shut
on
you down for
Broadway,
that.
off Broadway. It's all over now.
Right,
Mighty
right.
Whitey, it's all over now. So
And
yeah,
and
you
singing
wasn't
the
gonna
Black
get no more
Balloon
play.
song. Yeah, he says, listen, he says, we came in chains, we came in misery. Now all of our pain and suffering is a part of history. We came in chains. You must remember that. For that and that alone explains exactly where we're at. We came in chains. And so that's from Buck White, a play that Oscar adapted. He put music to Joseph Tooties, already had created Buck White. And so then that, or maybe he called it Big Time Buck White.
He did,
Right.
yeah. And then when Muhammad Ali stopped
He
fighting
couldn't fight.
for a minute.
He couldn't fight because of his resistance to the
Mhm.
Vietnam War.
Right.
So he didn't have any work. And so this was part of how he was trying to,
People
make a
don't know,
living.
right. People don't know that about Muhammad Ali.
Listen, they didn't put that in the movie, did they?
Yeah.
He was like, don't call me Cassius Clay, and I'm not going to fight for you.
Right.
Come on
And
now.
he was quite the performer. He was
Listen,
Oh, he
quite
did a
the
great
artist.
job.
He
Oh my
did.
God,
Yeah,
he
Black
sang.
Balloons. Yeah,
It's on YouTube. You can find it. There
Yeah.
are
And,
links.
and Muhammad Ali has a whole album of poetry, of original poetry.
I didn't even know
No,
that.
see now,
Yeah.
you just
just taught
educated
us
me.
something.
Yeah, I am the greatest.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, it's called I Am the Greatest. Yeah, it's just
The
it's
name
an
of his
art-
company is Greatest of All Time. GOAT. I
Right.
found that.
Oh wow! Now they called us Africa. I know somebody. I think that like they were gonna reissue the book. I guess reissue the greatest book or something, and they had to call us because I guess something of his involvement with Daddy is included in that. And they had to call for some permission.
But I mean, I don't think people realize how important revolutionary art and conscious, culturally relevant
Ooh.
art is to the larger political struggle. I don't
Right.
care if you go all the way back to the Bolshevik Revolution, the African decolonization movement, the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement. You've never had a revolutionary movement or a revolutionary climate without
Without a
revolutionary
soundtrack
art.
and not
It's
just
always-
soundtrack. We
Art.
think because the image, the visual,
That's
and
right.
all that.
Right.
And we're starting to be smart enough to celebrate even what we did 50 years ago. The other
Right.
times that we had to have this come up,
Right.
in a big way,
Yes.
right? In a very concerted
Yes.
effort where it was like we had a renaissance here too.
Right.
We just didn't get the same press that New York did
Right.
in terms of what was exploding and coming out of Chicago
Yeah.
during those same years.
It's a little too radical.
Just
Hey,
a
I
bit.
think,
back.
you know,
And
because
Who pushed that under the rug?
They would definitely turn
Don't
it
talk
against
about
us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because rap, and hip hop and stuff, and I know how you feel about it because you talked about it at
Right.
length on your show, and I've
Right.
seen you. And so what I know is when you turn something against people, then it starts to attack them. And to me, that's what's happening with the music,
Right.
in ways. And I have to look at the underwear of these boys as they walk around the streets, and grown men even, in the culture, what it's doing, it's upsetting.
Right.
And so then when you have these lyrics that are just, when my child is listening to it, so I can't help it, I can't tell her, turn that off, because I just don't want to be that type of
Right.
parent, because she also listens to Billie Holiday, she also listens to Lauryn Hill, but, so I want her to have the freedom to listen to what she wants. But when I hear the words, it's just like it's insulting.
Right.
When I think about the lyricist my father was, and the way that he put those words together to help, like you said, to help this struggle.
Right.
And we're still in it, but
Right.
you wouldn't know it, not by listening to what it is that they have representing us now.
Which is by design.
Of course.
Oh, it's by
Like
design.
every
By
liquor
design.
store on the corner and every currency exchange on the corner, it's all by design. of
Because
course.
I mean, just reading up on Oscar Brown in preparation for this show, and how Columbia Records claimed they had trouble marketing him. They didn't know how to place it. And they did that with so many progressive
They
artists. What is it,
Conveniently
jazz?
label
What?
them.
Right.
Conveniently label them ahead of their time or
Right.
too outspoken.
Right.
That's all it takes. Some little phrase.
Right. If it can't be packaged, commodified, with artificial preservatives and sold
Right.
from a cookie cutter standpoint,
There-
and I think that we don't even have to speculate. We know that through COINTELPRO and Freedom of Information
They
documents,
don't want nobody
artists
making us
they
think.
had some of the biggest FBI profiles.
We saw Daddy's
We're on-
dossier.
right.
His
we're on
dossier
artists.
was so thick and all black,
Right.
all these parts were blacked out. It was deep.
So they are very threatened by our art. So the quality of black artistry, music that's coming out now is by design. It's a premeditated crime. It's not just
Absolutely.
free expression. You
It's
know,
a universal language.
it's
and,
social
you know,
engineering.
Right.
So
It is.
do you
And we
think?
just how
think-
would we make our people see on a more massive level? How can we make them see how do the same thing Malcolm X was saying, but do hoodwink Jack, if you think this is what you're supposed to be doing, you have totally been bamboozled.
Well, Garvey said, you know, a tree without its root is dead. I think reviving the Oscar Browns, the revival of Nina Simone, and these other great progressive conscious artists
True.
is one of the ways to inform the youth, because that's what they deliberately did. Is
Yes.
they in order to enslave us, they cut us off from our history.
Yes.
In order to keep us in a
Speak.
dysfunctional state, they cut us off from our cultural history. And we need cultural revolution, essentially. And I think,
we do.
like the Oscar Brown Jr. Archive Project is how you reawaken. Because I know I found a lot of these progressive arts through listening to conscious hip hop. I first heard of Kwame Ture from listening to KRS-One
Yes.
song.
Right.
I think what
Right.
was the song?
Yes.
You're Struggling, where he had snippets of that. And Ice Cube, believe it or not. I know a lot of people that only know the Disney movie Ice Cube. Younger people like my son don't know Khalid Muhammad, you know, had basically was the hype man or did an MC'd one of his entire albums.
Yes.
So I think that's how we awaken the youth, by reestablishing the roots, by
Yes.
revitalizing the roots of where
Yes.
hip hop came from,
That's
with the
right.
spoken word, rhyme, artistry, and
Yeah.
infused with politics.
I mean, and there's no way that if you're thinking negative thoughts,
Mm.
that negative things can't be happening. And if you're constantly saying these negative lyrics, it's going to have an impact. And I truly believe healthy music will mean a healthy mind,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I agree. I've had Quabanai on the show a couple of times with the Clear the Airways
Clear the
project.
airways.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this brother
Yeah.
does it, where he's just
Yeah.
chronicling the content of
Yeah.
quote unquote black urban radio. And they find that many of these DJs aren't white. The production staff, there are no white people, only they
So black
select
people
the
are
music.
doing this to themselves.
Right, and well,
There's a play, you know, they have to follow a program, don't they?
yeah, and those programs are set by white artists.
Right.
And it's again, I think it's really tragic that we don't know that revolutionary music, revolutionary artists, progressive, conscious, committed artists are abound in our history, and even today that don't get the proper recognition.
I hope that we can create more. I hope that we can create young ones. I hope that the youth listening to this will be inspired to raise the bar of what is acceptable as good music.
Right.
You know, we won't even accept it if you can't at least, you know, say anything other than da, 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 da. It's like you have to enlighten them, like you said, and I believe that shedding light on things like this and other works will do that. We have to work together.
Yeah, because otherwise it will not. I mean, we can't thrive without, especially people as being, you know, oppressed.
Yeah.
Oppressed people cannot, you know, endure without progressive art.
My sister Maggie has a show called Legacy, Our Wealth of Music, that she's been doing for so long now. And she goes into the schools and educates young people about music, where it came from. Come on, girl, talk about it.
Legacy is a demonstration lecture that teaches about our history all the way from its African roots and the songs that were the chants that our ancestors had to sing when they got here under the whip, all the way up to the present day rap and hip hop. But just looking at what the legacy of this music is, the miracle of what jazz music is, the fact that we, you know, endured the most ridiculous and inhumane circumstances, but still created beauty and art that enriches all of us to this day. I don't care if you watch the cartoons, that stuff is inspired by music of my ancestors, that whether it started on that porch with just two spoons. Ham bone, patent juba, patent ham bone, or whatever. So slapping ham bone. So now I'm saying that I was hoping, I've always hoped ever since a long time ago, '91, that by illuminating this story to a young person, it would turn them on and make them realize kind of, because it's like a light bulb went off in my head, even though I had been around my father, Phil Coran, all kind of things, our older brother, and we have been around things. It's like you come upon, you feel like you've come upon knowledge for yourself, realizing that, yeah, they gave you all the ways to get to discover it, right? So legacy just, it talks about the beautiful, resilient spirit of our ancestors. And again, like I said, how they could find beauty and produce art even amidst the most intolerable conditions. And if I get to use Bitterman in that piece, I'm fortunate
That is a powerful
to draw from so many works of my father. So when it's time to talk about ragtime, I get to sing a lyric of Oscar Brown Jr.'s to the tune of Scott Joplin's Entertainer.
Right.
And you know,
because every child has heard that song. So Dad wrote words to that, you know, and he wrote words to a lot of classic black music. He said, were there any who cared to cry on the day the ragtime piano man died? Were there any
who sobbed inside as they carted him on his final ride? Was there much of a damn they gave about this talented son of a slave? When the brother passed on, another colored man gone without a marker to put on his grave.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work that we have like that we want to.
It's a whole play on that too, by the way. He did a whole Scott Joplin piece called Maple Leaf.
He did.
Baby, hey Scott, great Scott,
yeah. So we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just gonna be your background music.
In terms of the economics.
Yeah.
You know, I know the late Professor William Maggie. He was a musicologist, but he mainly focused on the copyright, trademark, and ownership of black art. And I remember when Gil Scott-Heron was living in a Harlem flop house, and his music was selling from here to Japan, all over the world, and I believe Flying Dutchman owned the rights, and then they sold it to some Japanese, or sold it to Arista, and then Arista was bought by Japanese, and it's over and over. And I was just listening to one rapper who was now doing reality TV, and he was talking about how, you know, how his hit songs are sending, you know, Jewish kids to college and buying lake homes for Jewish families, while his children are working 9 to 5 and struggling to get by.
Oh,
so,
baby, I've been trying. And that's the thing about legacy. I swear to goodness, I've been jumping up and down saying that since 91 when I started this. I was like, I used to feel like I want to show up to the schoolyard and have like an ice cream truck, but be blasting positive, you know, hip music that's gonna be culturally uplifting, that's gonna raise their consciousness, and you know, and deal it like dope, you know, be giving it away, let them get a little sample. I'm not kidding. I used to feel like it's that daggone desperate, and it was. Damn, because had somebody done something like that back then, it might not have gone this ridiculous.
Well, the culture is like any other commodity or natural resource. I mean, you look at Africa's wealth. You know, European companies go to Africa and extract trillions of dollars in natural resources, and then trickle some money back in foreign aid. And they come to our communities and extract billions of dollars from our cultural creations, and then they'll, you know, we see, especially modern artists in the age of social media, we see them flying on private jets that they don't own, and touring in mansions that they don't own, and driving around in cars that they have on lease, where we have the superficial vision of wealth and resources,
And my dad called it nigger rich.
And then we turn around and find out that yet another resource that belongs to our people is being extracted, processed, refined, and then trickles some of the resources that we only a fraction of what we actually create comes back to us. You know, and this has been going on since, you know, since the early phonographic era, when they were
Scott Joplin, all the way back down, because Scott Joplin created a song called Maple Leaf Rag, and it was the first million seller at a time when there was only printed music. There was only printed sheet music, right? And the self-playing piano was newly invented in our nation's history. So the rolls of the self-playing piano were quickly filled with this material of this ragtime music, and it took the nation by storm and had them getting drunk and doing that stuff, and sometimes they'd almost forget just how racist and low down they was and just be having a good old time to that music, right? And then try to make us feel like what we were doing was low down because the only place they relegated us to play it was in the brothels and the whorehouses. That doesn't mean that we was low down music. That's just where we had to play, right?
It just mean it was haters.
Right. She is not a bitch. The situation is a bitch. I mean, you know, it's been the case the whole time.
Right. So, I mean, and you would imagine that we would be able to turn this around after about a century.
That's what I was like. What do you think it's gonna take to like really like? Because I've been feeling like I'm supposed to do something, contribute to that mass change of heart.
Well, they had. It's just like in Africa. I mean, the analogy just continues on. In Africa, you had foreign colonizers that would put a colonial overlord, a colonial governor, where you had white people, white administrators, white bureaucrats, and white soldiers patrolling the streets of African cities, African nations, extracting the wealth. And then you had neo-colonialism, where you had a black head of state, black prime minister, black bureaucrats, black administrators, and black soldiers patrolling the streets, overseeing the exact same conditions that the white people did. Then we started having this Rockefeller records, Bad Boy records, and all these black record labels, and a lot of artists like, our own people, we got our own labels.
We got our labels.
And not knowing Aftermath and Death Row, and then when you look beyond the curtain, it's still
the same.
Ben Beatty, Universal Records and Interscope Records. It's still white people overseeing it, and the black
PG,
and the black record execs and label heads were subjecting black artists to the same limitation. My wife taught at a performing arts high school, and it was really popular. It had a fully set up digital music studio, and because she taught English, she would listen to a lot of the students' music, and many of the students, she said all of her male students were basically drill rappers. This is a few years ago. They were all gangster rappers. And she said, to a person, every single one of those students had a whole booklet of progressive, uplifting, culturally relevant, politically charged poetry or rap songs.
Really?
And they never recorded them.
No, of course not. Of course not. Listen, it ain't no accident. No.
And all they would do was the drill, the shoot 'em up music, because they said that's what will get you on. That's what.
Bend over. I know
who convinces create another platform
them of that?
We have to.
That's what I.
When Chief Keef sells, several million, and then he has a Beverly Hills mansion.
That's what tells him.
Right, and when Future is rapping, there are two rappers, one older from not even after me, but before what's now, 50 Cent, and he had a song, "I Stay High All the Time," and he didn't drink, he didn't consume drugs, he didn't smoke weed, he didn't partake in any of that, but he put out a song, "I Stay High All the Time," and there's this new popular rapper called Future, and he puts out a song, Molly Percocet, and he puts out drug raps. Right. He's sober, he doesn't get high, he doesn't do the drugs. So they're obviously not speaking from who they are and from their heart. They're speaking about what they're told. They're
Sex sells, that thing,
Right. I mean, I think a lot of times these CIA operatives, or what do you want to call them, they come and say, listen, this is what we want, put it to music. So the brothers make the music, but they don't determine the content. I think that's what it is very deliberate, because they had stated, we're not going to allow the 60s to be repeated.
Ain't nobody going to wake a bunch of people up again. There ain't going to be no Malcolms and no Martins and no Garveys and none of that old.
But see, with the internet and things like that, it seems like we could get it out there other ways.
But then they, even on the internet, there's one legendary rapper, Wise Intelligence of Poor Righteous Teachers. He had done a basically an informal experiment on social media.
Okay.
He had posted like some of his song lyrics, his progressive song lyrics, and then he had posted some nonsense, some Kardashian gossip nonsense. And he said the feedback from the tabloid post went viral. It showed up on everyone's feed, whereas his more progressive stuff, no one saw or responded or interacted with it.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and then me, my account is constantly suspended for hate speech and violating
Right.
community standards. And I mean, I don't do any music, but just I was suspended from. I had posted Getty images of. I was talking about how when black people were fighting for civil rights, there are a lot of people that rode our backs into equality, rode our backs into integration, that turned their backs on us now. And I showed where they had the signs, no Mexicans allowed, no Jews allowed, no Polish allowed, no Irish allowed. It wasn't just no blacks allowed. So, you know, and they had all these discriminatory from all these, not just non-white people of color, but also white ethnics. And there was a lot of white ethnic hostility, internal white from various white ethnic groups. And those white ethnic groups didn't become white until we secured rights for all. And that goes all the way back to Reconstruction up to the Civil Rights Movement. And they said that that was hate speech.
Do not tell
And
the
so,
truth by.
Even a lot of people say, well, now at the age of the internet, you know, the artists don't have to depend on the corporations. I say in the age of the internet, they're even more dependent now.
Okay.
They're even more susceptible.
Okay.
So it's not the open, democratizing technology that they told us it was.
Interesting, because they still control it.
Right.
They could push the button anytime.
Aggressively. And it's not even people, it's algorithms. If you string certain words together,
That will.
that will trick you. So, you know, and a lot of times, to suppress it might bring, they first try to ignore it, and then they denounce it, and then they move to censorship. They don't always go straight to censorship. There's also always a process depending on how the people respond to you.
Wow.
But too many of our great art, too much of our great art, and too many of our artists, you know, are in struggle in obscurity, or exist in obscurity. I think that really needs to be turned around.
Yeah.
But the black radio station, what do they call the Breakfast Club, which is probably the most popular. They're only black, right? It's blackface. It's a modern
Lord
minstrel
have mercy.
show.
I cannot take 1 second of that. I
Right.
don't understand it at all.
Right.
I don't.
Right. Well, they've always told us that every time there's a new media technology, when the printing press was invented, they were like, oh, we're going to have mass literacy, and we're going to be able to record human history and human events, and it's going to create this great awakening. And then you had basically the Inquisition and the violent Inquisition and the Protestant Reformation. It was all this violence. And then when the radio came, radio technology, you could talk about people, all the world's going to create understanding, and we're all going to start speaking the same language. And they started using radio technology. What did you have? World War I, World War II, all this violence. And then television, you'll come right into it. There'll be no more strife. There'll be no more hatred, because people could, every time there's a new technology, they promise us all this great awakening or renaissance of humanity. And it always ends up being the lowest common denominator. The trash gets the most boost, while the real quality content gets
Say it
suppressed.
again. Does this get recorded? Well, I know it
Yeah.
does. But what he just said, you know how that kind of lends itself to cyber soul.
Yes.
Tell them what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
Actually,
Tell what I'm speaking
the
of.
play Cyber Soul
It'll
is
be number 4.
it's coming up
February
Sunday,
24th.
February 24th, and it happens to be about just what you said about how the technology of the internet and cyberspace will corrupt, what could be something that is a wonderful, beautiful forefront and bring us all together.
Right.
There are what he called the rebooters, which my father wrote this ahead of his time. So what he called the rebooters is really like the dark web of today. So he was saying how that can get in and just really corrupt everything. And so we've never even seen this particular play.
Dad never saw
He
it.
never saw it.
Yeah.
It's something
Yeah.
that he wrote and created, so we don't know the music to
We
it.
don't know.
We've
That's
never
right.
seen it,
Mhm.
and so we're bringing it
I
to
had to see that.
we're bringing it to light because for one, no one ever has, and two, it's going to be kind of difficult because we don't have a frame of reference.
Right, we
or
really have to
anything,
sort of
you know.
develop things. So we're trying to
Yeah.
work with some young people, Razor Winter Castle, and that's, you know,
Dana Lynn Knuckles.
Dana Lynn Knuckles, and just, you know, to just get some, we want, Africa's probably suggested and will help us craft like one more character will probably, and her name needs to be
Millennia.
I mean, you know, right, because that way, that language that Oscar didn't know, he wasn't tweeting, you know, back when he wrote this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that long before he passed in 2005 that he did complete Cyber Soul. But again, there's just certain things that, phrases and
We have to
terms that would
modernize
be missing. And that would be the way she was saying, and I love that. It's a brilliant idea that will be a way to bring that into the play.
We have to bridge.
So we're going to co-write on this one with him.
We're gonna take some
Posthumously.
liberties.
Again,
We're gonna take some,
posthumously, yeah.
definitely. But we're really excited about
And
doing
the
this
last thing,
archive project.
what's the
What?
the last thing we're gonna do was the first thing that
Kicks
he
and Company.
did.
Yes.
Kicks and
We
Company.
talked about how wasn't he supposed to be a lawyer? Yes, he was supposed to be a lawyer, but instead he was up in that loft on
Right.
46 and Cottage typing what came to be the script of Kicks and Company. Kicks and
Right.
Company has a lot of things that's historic about it. First of all, Lorraine Hansberry got involved with it. She directed it. The man, the white guy that she was married to,
Robert Nemiroff.
Robert Nemiroff, ended up being one of the co-producers of that piece.
And then took writing credit, you know,
Yeah, well,
because they.
yeah. Anyway, and so, but Kicks it was historic. It opened up McCormick Place. Burgess Meredith starred in it.
It was a big deal.
Nichelle
Nichols,
Nichols,
the Star Trek lady, the black lady.
Al Freeman was in that original cast, and it was really very major. Oh, and Oscar Brown Jr. went. The Steve Allen saw him in his nightclub act in New York and dug it so much back then that he invited him onto the Today Show so that Daddy could hold a backers audition and raise $200,000 on the Today Show. They gave him the whole 2 hours. And then after that happened, that was on
They
NBC.
were like, oh no.
There was a law passed
Said you can never do that
that
again.
says no one can ever let that go down like that ever again.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh my goodness.
Kind of like the time the record label came and removed the albums out of the radio stations that had a Lone Ranger song on it.
Yeah, because
You got that in your
The
thing?
Lone Ranger and Tonto were riding down the Navajo Trail. When a band of Indians found him, proceeded to surround him, and the Lone Ranger turned kind of pale. Tons of our lives are in danger. We got to get away if we can. Tonto just looked at Lone Ranger. Said, what you mean, we white man? Tell me what you mean, we white man. Tell me what you mean, we. Tell me what you mean, we white man. Tell me what you mean, we. Yes. Using he big trouble. But it don't involve me, white man. No, it don't involve me. So they came
in the
snatch
70s. That
They
came.
snatched that.
I was just surprised they let it. You know, Atlantic.
Even get that
Atlantic.
far.
He was on
Even get
Atlantic
that-
Records
Yeah.
then.
So I mean, you know, Lone Ranger and Tonto, that was everybody has seen that,
Yeah.
and Dad took it and just like in your faced it.
Yeah,
It
because that
was
was
hilarious.
a popular show.
It was
I
very.
did one,
watch
I
that.
hold
one mini,
silver
one mini
away.
shows on, baby.
Right.
I know you did. I did
Right,
too.
yeah, I
know,
watched
you know.
that.
Right,
Because-
when
and
he
you
one
wanted
of the
him to
first
win.
people
You really
of
wanted him
color,
to,
you know,
right,
even
one of the very
represented.
few, right.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, so he said, yeah, well, in reality, if Tonto would have left you, you'd have been killed.
Right.
And the real Lone Ranger was a black man, former
Oh,
player,
see
yeah.
there, here we go. Come on, history.
Yeah, they're finding out that,
Come on.
yep,
Come
lawman of the West. So yeah, everything is a lie. Like even the two, they knew the identity of the unknown soldier in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Everything's a lie in America. I mean, they just deal in lies. I mean, Trump literally won because he was the best liar. So the state of Chicago, you guys are both artists
Yes,
yourselves.
yes.
Can we speak on your own artistry, your own creative process, and what do you think about the overall Chicago art scene? I mean, this is known around the world as the home of drill rap, violence, and misery. but there's so much positive, progressive art and theater here on the ground level here in Chicago.
That's right. I mean, from Muntu to Jackie Taylor to there is so much here in Chicago. And yes, the violence is very real and very serious. It touched home to us very recently. Someone that we love dearly and raised this baby girl, got shot out at a Wendy's over on 55th and State.
Wow.
The brother she was with got shot 14 times. She got hit 4 times, and this scared us to death.
Just senseless. And,
yes.
But there is a scene, like, especially in the summer. In the summer, there's even more opportunities, from the jazz in the alleys to even the people sitting out at DuSable and just bringing their chairs out. And that's, there's a lot of good, potent stuff you can do. I don't care if your stuff is jazz or if it's house. You can be out on 31st or you can be out south. And I don't get around the city that much, I must admit, because there's probably things happening in other areas that I just don't even know about. But and I mean, if you wanted to go to Humboldt Park or to what's the one that's so popular, Hispanic area of town that just, there's stuff jumping all the time.
Right.
But one thing that seems sad, I was working to be on the app, the tour guide voice for an app that had to do with touring neighborhoods, right? So the Detour app, we're coming to we're getting off at 47th of the Green Line. Now what can I say? Harold Washington Cultural Center ain't open. Nope, there's no restaurant. Oh, excuse me, the places that have the shops, nope. Black people on it, nope. What?
Right.
Other than some like historic old building landmarks, there is nothing like if you and it's nothing like if you went to Pilsen or you was in Humboldt Park or you were in whichever the one,
Chinatown even. I mean, come on.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah. So there are pockets though. There are pockets, but it's not plentiful like it should be.
No. Maggie and I are gonna do a show at a school.
Kwame Nkrumah Academy.
And we deal in edutainment. Right. A part of our process because the way to educate while entertaining, and that we heard from our father first, and he's embedded that in us. We were brought up in that. My dad believed in nepotism really hard, and he had me on stage when I was 7 years old, and we were doing one of the plays that we did in the beginning. That was one of the first things that I was involved with my father. So the way that Maggie and I work, we have a formula that we learn from him, where we come in and we get the children and we'll see what it is that's on their mind and get the ideas from them, ask them poignant questions about what's going on in their life, write it up on the board, what they're saying, and then take those words and rhyme it, and then use some song that they know already, like Justin Timberlake.
I could see a different day, me and my friends going out to play, having fun on a sunny day, so I just hope and I pray that things stay this way, no threat of violence, guns are silenced, that's what this vibe is, cause there won't be no violence in my world, my world, cause peace is what's required in my world.
So now we do that so easily with children, but to me that's like one school, and that's just one one small pocket.
One little workshop.
So what we're working to do is be able to reach more people, duplicate it, get lesson plans out, and be able to share that new style of learning. Take the music and turn it into something positive. And raise their acceptance of what is.
Because we do all like the
we
love the
love
beat.
that.
We're affected by it
listen,
too.
those kids were so excited when they put their words in it. So they got to the part where they were like something about their school,
themselves.
And they just blew up. They like went crazy. It was like you'd have thought it was really their song, and it was. It really was right then. It was their song, and so we want to be able to make that spread and get other schools and communities into doing that, whereas the children can come together and write and do talent shows. What happened to talent shows where kids
I went to a talent
where they're not popping their butt,
and
breaking it down? No, it has to be. We have to raise the level of that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? In order for you to get in this talent show, you have to have this. The criteria has to be set higher. You cannot shake your butt and get on stage and think that's going to do it. You have to do that over there when they do that over there. But I think that we as a community and artists, my sister and I, we really, really want to help raise the level of what entertainment is to them.
Right.
What's
What they
acceptable
accept.
entertainment? Yeah.
And they're intelligent.
When I first started the Legacy Show too, I used to say I want to change what we accept as entertainment in America, which will change it around the world.
Right.
And that's lofty as can be.
It really
It's like a
is.
needle in a haystack, a little
It really
who down
is.
in Whoville talking about, ooh, I'm down here. Please, young people, nobody must not have broken down. Let me break it down to you, baby. Let me make you understand. It's our
She
cultural
does.
expression,
She
baby.
does.
This has
She get it
power.
out of her mouth, and you would swear it was gonna change everything. She like, if I just say this to him, it's gonna
Sing
do
it a certain way. If I
Right.
rap, I'll start rapping it now.
Lord.
Like, okay, I need to rap
She
it.
is MC
I'll rap some-
Maggie. I swear I cannot stop her. When we doing a show, we be doing a jack. She'll bust out just hit MC Maggie on you in a minute. I'm like, oh my god,
Hear
okay.
me out. Let me tell you what this song is all about. My grandfather taught me it's about my community. Me caring for you and you caring for me. Sure, we've all got to make a living. But as you climb the ladder, don't forget about reaching back for the brothers and sisters below. Pull them up and along as you go. People love the world today. Can we pick a better way? Instead of shooting brothers down till there's no brothers around or something could get through to you. There is so much work to do. Brothers, sisters, we got to make that change or we're through.
Go MC Maggie. Yes.
That's my old one.
That's
my
her. That's
old-
right. That ain't even her
that's
latest
old
stuff. That's some old
Big
stuff.
Big Oscar inspired that from his book by Thread.
But in reality, my sister won 3 Arts gave her some money to make her first music video for a song called
Great Migration.
Great Migration. And we're really connected to the migration because like we spoke about the 5 brothers, brown brothers that came from Mississippi, came this way. And my grandfather and his brothers, my great uncle has been Sidney P. Brown. He wrote The House of Alpha. And this is the credo that the all alphas know and say, and it's one of their most important things or whatever. And he wrote that, and they established their houses right there in Hyde Park, and we're still located right in that area. We stayed right there. Dad stayed right in that area, and it's just we're very connected. And Maggie's song,
Big Oscar helped start work with
Ida B.
Supreme
Wells.
Life, and he was manager of Ida B. Wells when it was a great place to live, and also
not just
Baldwin,
housing, but a way of life.
right? Not just housing, but not just shelter,
No,
but
just
a way
shelter,
of way of life, and just was a intelligent man that educated himself, and as the great historian and curator Harry Jones said, he came to serve. He and his brother came up to serve. They didn't, nothing wrong with just coming to work in the factories and the foundries and to make a better way of life for your family. But they really were like, oh no, we gonna help us pull up by our bootstraps.
Right. Well, there's so many great. I mean, and with the there's a lot of wealth because you just covered so much Chicago history. I wonder why the black bourgeoisie, the black elite. There's a lot of well-moneyed black families
Isn't it though?
in this
Isn't it
city,
though?
from Oprah on down,
Baby, listen.
that claim this city, but they don't invest in progressive
Not
black
in what's
arts.
real.
I mean, you have, especially, I mean, not to pick on Oprah, but she's producing everywhere from Atlanta to Hollywood. And like you said, the theaters here on 47, I live 1 block off 47th Street. And like you said, the theaters and the iconic locations.
Weekend, are you
possible?
kidding?
And the city came along and put those historic jazz
yeah,
district
just to
posters up.
Right, the little
to
banners.
placate us with the
Right,
what is that?
but there's no real culture there in terms of what it should be. I mean, there are some people struggling, and I don't want to take away from what they're doing to try to revive that area.
But we know it could be so much more.
And I wonder why they
There's a reason.
failed to do that.
But it has to be back to what you were talking about how we're not gonna have another one of those upsurgings. We're
Right.
not gonna have any more of that conscious But
I think that's a big part of
it
it.
has to be like Maggie's song The Great Migration. It's educating, it's entertaining, and it's wonderful. And a lot of the way that she writes now has to do with that. You could just see how the heavy influence, and as well as myself, trying to use our art and our talent to come to our own rescue of what needs to happen and what direction we need to go, seeking solutions. My name being Africa, I said, well, how what song is there that we have like that would help teach kids about the continent. So I couldn't find any, and so I created one. I said, well, you know, if my name is Africa, I need to at least be able to say what the countries are. And so I put it together: Namibia, Angola, Gabon, and the Congo, Cameroon, Nigeria, Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Togo, Senegal, Ivory Coast. You'll find a black man doing the most. So it goes on, and I do all of the countries, and they rhyme. And because everything we do does, because of my dad. You know, and Maggie, her song about the migration.
New landscapes gave way to seizing opportunity. When folk first arrived to build a new community, my people faced struggles and injustice. In spite of odds, we came up winning. You can trust this. And y'all see proof in the metropolis that flourished, making way for the movement which was nourished, building on unity, forging revolution, standing up for our future. They were marching towards solution. Fact that it came with a price of many a black person's life. The fact that it helped them to grow up proud enough to wear an afro. And so, I'll tell you what makes it. Y'all say, what makes it a great migration? I'll tell you what makes it. Ask me, what makes it a great migration?
Beautiful. Yeah, and was it? I know there was some discrepancy between the historians. There were two actually, Great Migration centennials.
Oh, really?
And they were saying it was 1917. Some say it was 1918. So they had
like
two centennial celebrations here in Chicago.
Right? Well, see, we didn't know about that.
I knew about the one that was for 17 because the people, friends of mine, were calling that Paula Robinson and those guys, and but I didn't know. I thought ours it was supposed to last a couple years because it didn't happen on one day. It just, it happened over a period, and they just decided that by 1917 it was about at one of its highest, or it was definitely in flourishing. Whatever, give us any old excuse to celebrate it, recognize it, put it up, call attention to it.
And now they have the which I wanted to do something to commemorate. The centennial of the Red Summer of 1919.
Is that what happened in
the
that
Chicago
park,
race riots?
53rd near King, and where that forum circle is, or just the point was in that area?
Right, but remember they used to string lines on the lake shore where the blacks and the whites would swim. They said a black boy.
Oh yeah, and they went into and then something happened to him. He got killed or something, and then it just started
that white mob.
Right, and then this big thing started.
And they called it the Red Summer because black people were fighting back. For all the years prior to that, black people were strictly the victims.
Yeah.
But black people organized and mobilized to fight off the white mobs, and all of a sudden that's when it becomes a.
It was red. Then.
Right. It's a tragedy because we weren't the only side doing the dying. You know, it's like they call it the Cold War when it's mostly black and Asians dying, but it's a Cold War, but it's a World War when just a few European countries are having an internal skirmish. It's a hot war. So yeah, it's the same thing with the Red Summer. So it's 2019, you know, and just to try to evaluate where we gone from the Red Summer, and now they're talking about the bloody summers in Chicago, and anticipating violence here because of the gang and street violence. So yeah, I'm actually working with some organizers to see if we can put together some events too.
Well, please let us know, because we will definitely lend ourselves to that.
All the bad news. Crime reporting got us singing the blues.
And you guys are still in the Hyde Park, Bronzeville area. What are your thoughts on the gentrification? Because that's my hood too. That's my adopted hood.
I'm actually over there.
What is that?
I started hanging out.
And we got a Whole Foods now, so it's over. Let's all just pack up. Let's just leave from here. Let's just let's leave from the studio and just get out.
First you couldn't play bongos at the point.
Get away from here now.
Right.
Yeah. No, I've been hanging over there by Mr. Theaster Gates, artist, community that he's developing over in that Grand Crossing area lately here. By the Arts Bank and so forth. That's where I've been staying. But of course, grew up in Hyde Park, always going to Hyde Park. And yeah, man, it is definitely a gentrification. It's deep with this project that we're doing. We found ourselves sitting in the Polsky Center, the Polsky Exchange,
Yeah.
that incubator.
Yeah,
that's up there.
I'm there.
Oh, baby. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Nice, wonderful, beautiful facility.
Yeah,
Anybody can access it.
Yeah, I'm a member
Yeah,
of the
There you
Post.
anybody, the
Polsky.
community can members access it, and because of our residency, we don't even have to pay for these next few months at least. But I'm sure we would want to continue. But it turns out when we're sitting in that building, in one of those classrooms, we're actually sitting in the same backstage area where Oscar, when he did that show at the Harper Theater, it was
Right.
called Summer in the City in about 1967. That's basically where that's
Wow.
right, where the stage curtain, they describe, yeah, this is about where the stage curtain used to come down. We're like, we are actually in the spot. And I was a little girl, she wasn't even born yet. Right, but I remember seeing, there were little things that I remember about that play, being at the Harper Theater, because before it was not a movie theater. For those of you who don't know, it used to be a legitimate stage theater.
Right.
And that street got named for our father
In
right
2015.
there in 2015 on 50.
Yeah, I saw the memorial.
Oscar
Yeah.
Brown Jr. Way.
Yeah.
It's 53rd to 52nd along Harper,
Yeah.
which makes sense because of his involvement in theater, not only at that location, but around the corner there used to be a church where they did the first Buck White.
That's right.
Yeah, before Ali got involved.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because they have, with the Polsky Center, they have integrated the modern architecture with the old,
They have. I love
basically
that.
Definitely.
skeletal.
Oh,
They
sure
did that at the
did.
Arts Bank too. I love that.
Yeah. So,
They did.
but yeah, I mean, it's been gentrifying since I got here. You know, I was still here when that.
The circle
area-
was the Harper Court
Yeah,
was still
yeah,
a circle.
the court, yeah, it was
like come
actually
play
a court,
chess.
right?
Yeah.
When so just as I moved here, of course I'm not from Chicago. Just as I moved here, that's when they were
Okay.
excavating
Getting
all
all
of
that.
that.
Sure. Wow.
I saw the remnants of it.
Okay, that's
So,
right.
Yeah, but like I said, it's all Starbucks and
It
Whole
is.
Foods and
Mhm.
And to me, it looks more money hungry than
Right.
anything else. But
It's
it
corporate.
definitely moves out. It moves us out. It
Right.
moves us out, and that's what it's been doing. And you can see the change of it. It's been going through some strangeness, like over Halloween.
Oh, yeah, the whole
Young people have
purging.
been coming
They
and
ascend
doing.
on it and want to purge,
Yeah.
do the Halloween purge. In
yeah,
that
I
area.
was there for that. I
Yeah.
saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been part of the group of people that said, well, wait. Instead of the authorities and the powers that be meeting them with more riot gear
Right.
and heavier artillery, could we show them how to act? Could we
Right.
come be loving? Could we're gonna be the orange shirts? We're gonna play. But let's create a cipher. Have a place where we could do a cipher over here.
Right.
Let's do something in this playground. They want to run up and down the street and throw eggs. Well, then let's make it so they could do it in Murray Park. Why not?
Right,
Why
and,
not?
and they had that large area cordoned off, and they had the small stage there. It didn't seem properly laid. The layout was just strange.
There was no
was-
stage.
Well, they had the big
It was
speakers,
way
maybe
over.
right over
By the
close,
midway.
right by
Exactly.
yeah.
That's
it was
what the
just-
well,
problem
that's on
was.
the midway.
Everything was right. That's what the problem was. They had this thing all spread out. No one's gonna go over there to do that
Right.
when all of the action is right here. And that's why the whole thing wasn't laid out correctly. I mean, we brought African drums out there. We're really trying to just make it more positive. Give the
Right.
kids something positive to do.
This year we couldn't even do any of that because they totally said that we are putting up a barricade. If you are 18 years, if you're not 18 years old, you can't even come this way up 53rd Street
Right.
without a parent. And so we got the promontory was kind enough to host a party for the teens that we then fed them and had a nice party with no incidents inside.
Right.
But then once the party let out, people complained that, well, when your party let out, incidents started happening
Right.
on Lake Park, down the street, this happened, that happened. It's like, you know what? Why don't y'all stop entertaining yourselves with all this shoot 'em up, bomb 'em up, mayhem, guns, Grand Theft Auto. First thing you do is give your child a controller so they can play some old kill 'em up game.
And
What
they
do you
get
think is
upset.
supposed to happen in
Right.
society? And if your music's talking about bitch, you better been on running,
Yeah.
niggas
What
with
are
a
you
gat on the-"
creating?
What
What are you
what
creating?
vibe is that? What
Right.
I'm no rocket scientist. It doesn't take
But
a
it doesn't
rocket
seem
scientist
like-
to see
yeah.
this is stupid.
Right, right. And again, it's where that ties in closely with gentrification because gentrification is all about buying low. So when they have this regressive policing, repressive policing,
It really is.
no
See, and that's just it. There's
investment.
so many tricks. You forget how many tricks there are. We're sitting up here saying, this is happening. Yeah, damn it, because they're going to get the land. They're going to move into the city because they got y'all acting foolish, shooting each other, property going down, all in boarded up buildings right next to your house. That's just pulling the property down. Then y'all going to leave. Then we going to get it, make it so nice. All y'all going to want to come and have a Halloween purge on it then.
Right. Yeah, and that's what they do all the time. And we see, you know, the same government,
Avenue,
the same policing agency that's able to undermine the Black Panthers, Black Liberation Army, subvert SNCC, subvert SCLC. I was like, but when it comes to criminal activities, they're just, oh, we can't stop it.
We don't
It's just-
know.
We don't have the resources.
All these damn
Right.
cameras and all this
Right.
extra electronic
The
intelligence.
murder, I mean, there's
Give me a break.
the hundreds and
Give me a
hundreds
break.
of unsolved, unresolved
Give me a break.
shootings and murders.
And they don't
They
have
just
anybody
don't have
for
the
our
resources,
friend, I'm
right?
sure
But
they
they
don't
like they have the resources to survey Oscar Brown Jr.
Oh,
and
I
create
know.
a
Back in the
huge
60s
dossier.
and the 70s,
Right.
yeah.
It's
Amazing.
It's all by design, and you start to and people just think, oh, things just happen. It's all a coincidence.
No.
It's just a natural. But you know, this is some of the most chaotic conditions in this society are well planned and
it's
superbly orchestrated.
Isn't it the truth?
And they have this new thing that if you start to recognize the pattern, then you're crazy. Because it just happens, you know. Trump just became president because this is a democracy and that's how it happens. And if you start to look at anything else, the collusion, then you're crazy. Then you're just a sore loser.
You're labeled.
Yeah, and so just to wrap up, I thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank
But I
you.
can't let you out of here without asking you about, I mean, we're in the city of Chicago. You are an artist operating in Chicago. This R. Kelly thing. They just had, at R. Kelly Chicago studio, they had a clash between the supporters of R. Kelly and the
People started fighting?
it wasn't violence, but
Oh,
they were
just
screaming.
verbal.
Yeah, it was more verbal. There was some shoving, and you know, you got two emotionally charged factions. Well, I don't even want to call them factions. I mean, just people who want justice and people who I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out
Starstruck.
the ones that are the people that are like
Starstruck.
for him. And what is it you're for?
Exactly,
I mean,
because they
I
can't
think-
be for child molestation. They can't be for pedophilia. It's not that you're fighting for that. You're trying to protect this man.
I'm hearing number one, people are they're first victim blaming. You know, where they
It's
say,
the little girls' fault.
oh yeah, those
Okay.
fast girls.
Oh,
And then if
yes,
someone
okay.
turns
Shouldn't
around
have
and
been
say,
there.
well, why was LaQuinn McDonald walking down the street in the middle of the night? He
Right.
wouldn't have got shot.
Right.
Then people are insulted and they are outraged. But then when a child becomes
A child.
right, all of a sudden they have agency. So yeah, it's crazy. People are saying it's a conspiracy to bring down a successful black man.
Right.
You know,
Is that what it was with the
Bill
when it-
Cosby,
yeah.
but I mean, R. Kelly is a Chicago institution. I never listened to, wasn't a fan.
Why?
I've never been to an
I
R.
mean,
Kelly
why is he?
show.
Why
but
is he?
No.
Because he sings these songs. Because he has these little provocative ass videos. Because he came out with Mr. Big. That's some of the most low down. You talk about what you say. Just that is some of the most low down subject matter. So what is it? It's like the gay midget has to be having an affair with the reverend that's really having a closet affair.
and
with
he
the so-and-so.
defecated on himself.
You know, and this is supposed to be black entertainment. God, don't get me started. I need to get off the air because
Yeah.
I'm telling you now.
Really, you
I'm
just
telling
started
you
something.
now. It's just absurd. It's just absurd. Why is he and talk about who's the other one that tried to say Kanye like he's just such a musical genius. But excuse me, I'm sorry. I did this came out on the air. I'm sorry.
What? Yeah, what is
I'm
in
sorry.
the water here with
I'm
Kanye?
sorry. I'm sorry. There's nothing musical. I mean, what? Because he rhymes. That
Okay.
rhyming is what he rhymes about. If you would come with something that would be uplifting, that would uplift humanity, that would uplift the people coming behind you, that would honor the people that came before you. If you would just do that in your rhyme, in your rap, then I would really think you were something. But until then, Kanye, that other stupid head, R. Kelly, who you named, nope. Nope.
There's something going on in Chicago. I mean, yeah, that's true. I didn't even want to. I forgot about Kanye. Kanye promised us he's.
Oh my God, Superman, you're my hero, Daddy. Suck my.
Kanye said he's moving. He's moving back to. He's moving back to Chicago, and he's never gonna leave us again. And we ain't seen him since.
I ain't seen him since. Did he give the money to the people for the Regal? Did he give any money to the people for the Regal?
Donda's house. And it was a $13 renewal. No, it's a $10 renewal fee. $3 if it's late. And he didn't pay the $13 to renew Donda's house, so they lost the not-for-profit status while he had a private
Kardashian this, Kardashian here, there, and every dash and dish and dash.
Yeah, we got work to do. The cultural work. We need a cultural revolution. That's why I'm glad we got the Oscar Brown Jr. Archive Project. I'm glad we have real artists out here who won't compromise or commodify their talent, but continue to struggle on behalf of the people. Again, this is Q4 Radio, AM 1680. And I got Maggie Brown and Africa Brown. Please let our listeners know, and of course you can go to @Diallo Kenyatta across social media. I will post in the details about the remaining 3 performances, location and times and links, so you can go to @Diallo Kenyatta and find that across social media, Twitter and Facebook and my website. But do you guys have contact information for show bookings and or websites or any info for our listeners?
Certainly. MaggieBrown.com is my website. Also on Facebook under my name. And then as far as Two Brown Sisters, what's that number for if someone wanted to take a number because they wanted to book us?
312-324-4747.
That's the number to call for for the Two Brown Sisters. I wanted to ask you, what are you doing? Like, what's the next thing? What are you doing next besides informing us and keeping people aware?
Well, outside of the Bro Diallo show, I've been right now. I'm working developing this with some changes in Illinois law. I've been a member of cooperative since 1992 with the Park Slope Food Cooperative, and every cooperative I work with has always been majority white or non-black. So I've been very interested in developing black-owned cooperative enterprises. And so I've been working with the African World Coalition to develop the ACE, African Cooperative Enterprises, and working with black people to turn their interests, hobbies, passion into cooperative businesses, communally owned, collectively owned businesses. Still doing urban agriculture. We still have that plot of land on the HF grounds, Hell's Franciscan grounds, where we have our organic, non-GMO farmland and growing hundreds of pounds of organic food for the community. I want to expand that into not just growing food, because then you have growth, harvest, processing, packaging, distribution. I want to create, again, a urban agricultural industry, not just urban farming or gardening as a hobby. We've got the which I've been talking about right now, which the NFL, which is Nubians for Literacy. It's just, I was finding that with these many boycotts every few years, we were supposed to boycott Florida. I mean, way back, even before we were boycotting Florida for Trayvon, we were boycotting Georgia for Troy Davis, and boycotting the NFL, and boycotting Nike. So a boycott is basically a cessation of action. We're going to stop. We're going to stop consuming this product. We're going to stop engaging with this industry or that, or stop traveling to this space. And I said, well, every boycott that tells us to stop doing something we were doing should tell us to start doing something else with that time and energy. So with this NFL boycott, we decided to create an alternative, Nubians for Literacy, which was a national book club and study group. And so we're on our second book now. We started reading, we're now reading Black Power, The Politics of Liberation by Charles Hampton and Kwame Ture. The book we read before that, I can't believe it's escaping. We just dissected that book inside out. What book was that?
That's beautiful, though.
Oh, $40 Million Slave.
$40 million though.
which was talking about how the wealthy athletes are exploited by the
Baby.
uber wealthy pro sports industry. And so we basically read these books and have weekly in-depth discussions about their content and their implications for today. And I'm also working on my own book and
There you
and
go.
writing
Yeah.
my own book. So it's going, and we also have a progressive. I don't have any singing talent.
Well, that's all right. But you have acting talent, so
Right.
we found
And,
out.
Yeah.
Ha-ha.
So we have African World Order, which is our T-shirt line, which we put out, and we have allies of the African World Order. So we find various organizations or individuals that are doing work in the community. We create fashion or clothing inspired by their work, and then we give them the funds.
Love it.
So one of our first allies was Basani, the Black Star Action Network International, which is a brother sister in Sierra Leone, two black people from the U.S. that repatriated, that are doing work on the ground there with the Gullah Nation and liberation. So we create Sierra Leone and Basani art fashions, and then we will send them
Oh, I want to see
the
it.
revenues.
Oh, I want to see
So
it.
that's still, we actually took down the website to redesign it and re-up, and we had to get a new distributor because we was having issues with our international sales of the shirts. So that will be working on that every day. But it's a struggle, and there's some other things I want to do in terms with communal fitness, but just day by day struggle.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, man.
Subvert the dominant paradigm.
Yes, my nephew, he was on YouTube, his Millionaire Hoy, and he was doing fitness, and he pulled himself off of YouTube, but now he's Patreon, and he still does a lot of fitness. So I really love the fact that you wanted to get into that, because it's so important, for us to be better, take better care of ourselves. Because when you look at what the children are eating, when I work in these schools and they come in the morning with these hot Frito chips and some pop, and this is the first thing you're putting in your body, and that it's not nurturing them, it's hurting them.
Right.
And,
Oh yeah. I forgot how bad it was. I went.
It's so
I was
bad.
just in the school. I was had signed on to be a tutor for the chess academy. So we were doing after school chess tournaments and tutoring for children at various schools. And so I would. The first time I had been in the school in quite some time, I didn't realize how bad the lunches. I took some pictures of the lunches that they were serving these students, and it blew. My sons are vegan, so I've always packaged food for them.
Of course.
So I just was taken aback by the look and the quality of the lunch. But it's
The
so
look
much.
and the quality.
So we have the contact information.
Yes, you do.
Reach out. Again, there will be a performance Sunday, November 18th at the Performance
Sunday,
House.
January 20th.
Oh, right. January, Sunday.
that's
I'm looking at the
right.
wrong
That's
date.
coming up.
Sunday, January 20th at the Performance Hall. And then Cyber Soul, February 24th, 2019, 4 p.m. at the Performance. And then the final Kicks and Company, which I will be in attendance. Hopefully I can make them all, but definitely for the Kicks and Company, March 18th.
That's one. That's
Look
one-
out, we
that's
have
the
you
one
on
Monday.
stage.
Right. That's the only one that's Monday.
May I ask you a question? What do you
Yes.
know your name to mean?
Well, my dad told me that it meant a warrior, but then I met this young lady from Senegal, and she told me that it meant brave or courageous or warrior.
Yep.
But it's mostly a surname. It's not a first name in West Africa. And
Yeah.
It's Senegal Fulani
Yeah.
name and origin.
That's my son's name. I
Oh,
named
really?
my son that. I spelled it with one L. And I met a Senegalese brother, and he told me I was pronouncing it wrong, because we call him
Tell me that,
Diallo,
right.
and it's really Diallo.
Yeah.
Jello. It's more like a.
J. Yeah. They told me I was pronouncing it wrong. I said no, Senegal got it wrong.
All of Senegal. Is wrong.
yeah.
All right,
Y'all
brother
just-
Diallo. Thank you, man.
Very much
Right,
for
I
having us
appreciate y'all
on.
too. So we're
Yes.
gonna have some of the iconic songs that we mentioned over the show. We're gonna use that to play us out.
Yes.
Again, Bro Diallo Show will be live again Friday morning. We will be dissecting the mythology of the Lynch letter.
Oh.
And you know, this ongoing lie that we tell ourselves and that we allow to be perpetuated. We're going to be debunking the Willie Lynch letter and talking about the true methodologies of enslavement and disruption of the black community and black movements from slavery reconstruction to civil rights to today. Peace, Bro Diallo Show. This is Bitter Men by the great Oscar Brown Jr.
That sun is hot and plenty bright. It's down business when we home tonight, Bitter Men. Auctioning slaves is a real high art. Bring that young gal,
Signing
boy,
out.
she's good for a start. Bitter Men,